a soldier stayed on a battlefield after his entire company retreated. He spent 12 hours lowering wounded men down a 400-foot cliff, one at a time, 75 men, under constant enemy fire. He had no weapon, not a rifle, not a pistol, not even a knife. His name was Desmond Doss. The date was May 5th, 1945. The place was Hacksaw Ridge, Okinawa. And this is how one man's absolute faith became 75 soldiers' survival. Desmond Doss was born in 1919 in Lynchburg, Virginia. He grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist household where Saturday was the Sabbath and the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," was taken literally. When he was a teenager, something happened that shaped his entire life. During a family argument, his father pulled a gun on his uncle. Desmond intervened and stopped it, but the moment stayed with him. He saw how close ordinary people could come to killing. He vowed never to touch a weapon in anger. His faith wasn't casual, it was the foundation of everything he did. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941, Desmond was 22 years old. He worked at a shipyard in Newport News, essential war work. The government classified him as eligible for deferment. He could have sat out the war with no questions asked. Instead, in April 1942, Desmond Doss volunteered for the army. He wanted to serve his country. He believed the cause was just. But he had one absolute non-negotiable requirement. He would not carry a weapon. No rifle, no pistol, no grenades, nothing designed to kill another human being. He would be a medic. His job would be saving American lives, not taking enemy lives. The army accepted his enlistment. However, his fellow soldiers did not accept him. Fort Jackson, South Carolina, basic training, summer 1942. From the first day, Desmond Doss became a target. His company saw him as a coward. In their view, a soldier who wouldn't carry a rifle endangered everyone. Combat requires every man to fight. If the Japanese attacked, Doss wouldn't defend himself, and that meant he wouldn't defend his brothers either. The harassment was relentless. Soldiers mocked him constantly. They called him a coward, a weakling, a fraud. While he knelt to pray before bed, they threw boots at his head. They cursed him. They isolated him. Some beat him when no officers were watching. The message was clear: quit, or we'll make you quit. But Doss wouldn't quit. He believed he had a right under American law to serve according to his conscience. The Selective Training and Service Act of 1940 allowed for conscientious objectors. He would be a medic. He would save lives. He would not compromise. His commanding officers joined the campaign to force him out. Captain Jack Glover tried repeatedly to have Doss discharged from the army. When that failed, he attempted to have Doss court-martialed for refusing to obey orders, specifically refusing to carry a weapon during training. The situation escalated. Doss was placed under arrest and faced formal charges. He was only saved when his father, a veteran of World War I, travelled to the base and presented military lawyers with documentation proving that Desmond had the legal right to serve as a non-combatant conscientious objector. The army backed down. Doss could continue training as a medic without carrying a weapon. But his unit's hatred continued. When they deployed overseas in 1944, Desmond Doss was the most despised man in his company. By April 1945, the 77th Infantry Division had fought through multiple Pacific campaigns. They'd seen combat in Guam and the Philippines. The men had watched Doss work under fire. Some grudging respect had developed. He did his job, he didn't run, but most still didn't trust him. Orders came for Okinawa, the final stepping stone before an invasion of mainland Japan. Intelligence indicated the Japanese had heavily fortified the island. This would be brutal. One of the Japanese defensive positions was a plateau atop a 400-foot escarpment. The Americans called it Hacksaw Ridge. It was sheer cliff on all sides. The only way up was climbing cargo nets while Japanese defenders rained fire down from above. American forces began the assault on April 29th. They climbed the nets under machine gun fire, grenades, mortar rounds. Men fell from the cliff, hit before they reached the top. Those who made it to the plateau faced fortified bunkers, spider holes, and prepared defensive positions. The fighting was savage. Grenades at close range, rifle fire from meters away, hand-to-hand combat in bunkers, flamethrowers burning out cave positions. Desmond Doss went up those cargo nets with his company, still unarmed, still carrying only his medical bag and his faith. For days the battle raged. The Americans would take ground, then lose it. Japanese counterattacks were ferocious. Casualties mounted. Then came May 5th. The American forces launched another assault on the ridge. They pushed forward. They took ground. Then Japanese artillery found them. Mortars and machine gun fire poured in. The assault collapsed. Men fell wounded across the plateau. The order came down, withdraw. Every soldier still standing began retreating to the cargo nets and climbing down to safety. Wounded men scattered across the ridgetop called for help, but evacuating them under that fire was impossible. The medics who tried became casualties themselves. The wounded would have to be left behind, at least until the fire slackened. Desmond Doss heard those men calling, so he made his decision and stayed, alone on top of Hacksaw Ridge. Japanese soldiers still occupied positions across the plateau, maybe 50 yards away. Artillery shells still fell randomly. Snipers still watched for targets. Any movement drew fire. Desmond Doss began searching for wounded Americans. He crawled through the mud and blood, staying low. When he found a wounded man, he'd assess the injuries quickly, who needed immediate evacuation, who could wait. Then he'd drag or carry the soldier toward the cliff edge where the cargo nets hung. The cargo nets were 400 feet tall. Lowering a wounded man down that distance by hand was impossible. Doss needed a system. He fashioned a rope litter from the cargo netting itself. It was basically a sling that could hold one man securely. He'd position the wounded soldier in the litter, tie it off, wrap the rope around a sturdy post or tree at the cliff edge, and lower the man down hand over hand. 400 feet of rope, 100 to 200 pounds of injured soldier. Doss did it by wrapping the rope around his body and using friction to control the descent. At the bottom, medics and soldiers waited. They'd get the wounded man out of the litter and signal up. Doss would haul the empty rope back to the top, then go find another wounded man, and do it again. Japanese soldiers saw him moving. Snipers fired at him. He kept going. Artillery shells landed close enough to spray him with debris. He kept going. He pulled men from shell craters where they'd taken cover. He went into destroyed bunkers where wounded soldiers had crawled. He crossed open ground under fire repeatedly. Some of the wounded were conscious and could help him move them. Many were unconscious, dead weight. Some were so badly injured that moving them caused terrible pain. But leaving them meant certain death, either from wounds from Japanese soldiers finishing them off, or from exposure during the cold Okinawa night. Evening came, then darkness. Doss worked through the night with no moonlight, just the flash of explosions. When dawn broke on May 6th, Desmond Doss had lowered 75 men down Hacksaw Ridge. Estimates of the exact number vary. Doss himself later said he thought it was around 50. Other soldiers who were there said it was over 100. The army investigated and officially credited him with saving 75 men. 75 soldiers who would have died on that ridge came down alive because one unarmed medic refused to leave them. But Doss wasn't finished with Hacksaw Ridge. Over the next 2 weeks, the battle for the escarpment continued. American forces kept trying to take and hold the plateau. Casualties kept mounting, and Desmond Doss kept working. On May 21st, while treating wounded under fire, a grenade landed near him. The blast threw him through the air and embedded shrapnel throughout his legs and torso. He was badly wounded. While he waited for stretcher bearers to reach him, Doss treated his own wounds as best he could, stopping bleeding, applying field dressings to himself. When 4 soldiers finally arrived with a stretcher and started carrying him towards safety, they came under fire. Doss saw another wounded soldier, more critically injured than him, lying nearby. He rolled off the stretcher and told the stretcher bearers to take the other man instead. He waited another 5 hours before another team could evacuate him. During the evacuation, while being carried on a stretcher toward an aid station, a Japanese sniper fired. The bullet hit Desmond in the left arm, shattering the bone. His stretcher bearers kept running. Doss, badly wounded from the grenade and now with a shattered arm, splintered his own broken arm using a rifle stock someone had dropped. The first and only time Desmond Doss touched a rifle during his entire service. Desmond Doss survived his wounds, but barely. He spent the next 5.5 years in army hospitals recovering. The grenade shrapnel remained embedded in his body for the rest of his life. He lost a lung to tuberculosis that he contracted while hospitalized. He would never be physically whole again. On October 12, 1945, President Harry S. Truman presented Desmond Doss with the Medal of Honor at the White House. He was the first conscientious objector to receive America's highest military decoration. The soldiers who had called him a coward stood and saluted. His commanding officers, the same ones who had tried to discharge him and court-martial him, publicly admitted they had been wrong about Desmond Doss. Captain Jack Glover, who had led the campaign to force Doss out of the army, later said, "He was one of the bravest persons alive, and then to have him end up saving my life was the irony of the whole thing." Men whose lives Doss saved testified to his courage. One soldier said, "He was up there the whole time we were pulling back. We couldn't believe it. We thought he was dead for sure." After the war, Desmond returned to Lynchburg, Virginia. His wartime injuries never healed. The shrapnel in his body caused chronic pain and infections. The loss of his lung reduced his physical capacity. He endured years of medical complications, but he never regretted his decision to serve without a weapon. He remained a committed Seventh-day Adventist for his entire life. He spoke occasionally at churches and schools about his experiences, but he never sought publicity or fame. He married, raised a family, and lived quietly. Desmond Doss died on March 23, 2006, at the age of 87. He was buried at Chattanooga National Cemetery with full military honors. Veterans who had served with him attended. So did men whose lives he had saved 61 years earlier on Hacksaw Ridge. Desmond Doss proved that courage doesn't require weapons. Every other soldier on Hacksaw Ridge that night had a rifle for self-defense. Doss had nothing. When danger came, other soldiers could shoot back. Doss could only endure it. Yet he was the one who stayed when everyone else retreated. After the war, the army changed its policies regarding conscientious objectors. Military leadership recognized that religious conviction doesn't equal cowardice, and that there are ways to serve honorably without compromising deeply held beliefs.